Donald Trump is very publicly losing his mind as his entire life and his entire term collapses before his very eyes. It is why yesterday, on one of the most beautiful days of the entire year, the dementia-addled president of the United States spent his entire day spamming an AI slop generator instead of running the country. But honestly, all I have to say to that is thank God, because that's the least harmful thing this idiot could possibly be doing. But it is one of the most embarrassing. Donald Trump let loose a fever dream of fake pictures. Of course they were of himself, and they did not make him look good. First, there's the deranged Donald Trump kissing a giant gold statue of Jesus Christ. Very strange. Then there's Trump standing next to a handcuffed alien in the desert. The joke kind of falls flat. There's Trump's head looming over Greenland like a fascist weather balloon. Also, Donald Trump spliced onto George Washington's body. He's also a Revolutionary War soldier in this photo, although he didn't ever fight. Private bone spurs. It's like Donald Trump saw us react to his Jesus doctor photo. We reacted poorly and decided, do you know what? Let's do more of that. Let's pretend that I'm a warrior via AI. And I think Donald Trump's doing it at this point because he's losing every war that he's in. Now, let me be clear, Donald Trump isn't just losing a war on Iran, although we see that every day. He's losing several wars. Let's first talk about the war on the United States Senate. Donald Trump cannot get John Thune to pass his Save America Act, so he's losing there. But Todd Blanche as well. It's a battle Donald Trump can't win. You got John Cornyn. You got Tom Tillis. They're telling him no. And so Donald Trump, all ashamed, fled D.C. He went to Camp David, which allegedly he hates. And of course, he was spending his time with Natalie Harp. Not strategizing, but having his cabinet officials kiss his ass because he needs to feel better about himself. But he doesn't, because his life, much like Mitch McConnell's, is falling apart. And so Donald Trump is losing his mind. Very publicly with his post, very publicly in his private life. It is all so bad. And he can't figure out what to do. This is how Donald Trump navigates his failure. Everything has to be a battle that he pretends to win. The Iran war, a leaky reflecting pool, the files he's clearly implicated in. Donald Trump has to imagine or lie about a reality in which he's succeeding because he cannot admit that the person most responsible for the country falling apart is the main person causing it, Donald Trump himself. Donald Trump is also the person responsible for his life in term falling apart. Your health isn't bad because of the radical left. It's because of the hamburgers. The Senate isn't turning on you because, I don't know, MAGA is actually Antifa. It's because your agenda is terrible. Everyone can see it, but everyone needs to hear it. And that is why we are doing this show today with three people who are calling out Donald Trump, the collapsing Donald Trump, that is, and all of his stooges as he loses his mind. We have an incredible first guest on the show. My friend, Senator Bernie Sanders. We're going to be talking about the Democratic Party. We're going to be talking about taking on Trump. We're going to be talking about so much else. And I am very excited to get into it with someone I have admired for so long, as well as another person I've admired for so long. We're being joined by Pod Save America's Jon Favreau. We've got a conversation about Donald Trump's health, Donald Trump's corruption, and why J.D. Vance sucks so much. So you're going to want to stick around for that. And we'll close with the Democratic nominee for governor in the great state of Texas, Gina Hinojosa. We got a lot to talk about in her campaign, so you're going to want to stick around till the end. But we got a lot of great guests, like I said. I am ready to have great conversations with them all, as we always do. It's you, it's me, it's our three fantastic guests, and it's all happening right now on Sunday. Senator Sanders, thank you so much for joining me on Sunday.
My pleasure.
Well, you have been traveling across the country, specifically in Michigan and Minnesota. We have a big primary coming up on Tuesday between Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed and Haley Stevens. And right now we've seen just the influx of tens of millions. I think it's going to be $80 million for Stevens. Big last minute endorsements from the establishment. What have you made of this last minute push in such an important race?
I think what the election in Michigan tells us is the role of big money in a corrupt campaign finance system. Look, I happen to be a strong believer in democracy. You want to run against me? You think my ideas are wrong? I think that's great. That really is. It's a beautiful thing. Argue it out. Let the people decide. But when you have billionaires and their super PACs, APAC and other special interests spending tens and tens of millions of dollars trying to defeat Abdul, that's not democracy. That's a corrupt campaign finance system controlled by billionaires. So I think the reason there's so much interest in Michigan is people are saying, is it possible in this day and age for a guy like Abdul El-Sayed to defeat somebody who has, what do you think, 60, 70 million dollars supporting her? That is the question. But I think at the end of the day, he will. And I think he will because people understand not only that the campaign finance system is corrupt, but that the economic system is rigged.
And it's something that you're certainly feeling on the ground. I'm sure you were. You did 3 rallies in Michigan. These are the issues that Abdul El-Sayed is running on. He's running on the issues. He's talking about Medicare for all. He's talking about getting money out of politics. He's been talking about data centers and AI a lot as well. This has become an issue. And in fact, Donald Trump was in Michigan earlier this week. And I want to show you a clip because he was protested at this rally over his support for data centers and his administration just unleashing AI on all of us. But this is how he was trying to campaign against Abdul El-Sayed, saying this.
But communism is the greatest threat to our country in history, including even World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, or 9/11. I mean, this is a serious threat because they're going to promise all sorts of things. In 1 year, the country will be absolutely bankrupt. You'll live in squalor. You'll live in fear. You won't have police. You won't have firemen. You won't have anybody. You're going to be... It's a disaster. Even the thought of it is a disaster. But communism is...
What do you make of Trump's Red Scare?
Well, first of all, it's sad to think that there's anybody in America who could believe this nonsense. And second of all, you know, he lies all of the time. He lies about the difference between communism and democratic socialism. And I think what he is trying to do is divert attention, clearly, away from an economy in which working families are falling further and further behind while his oligarchic friends, and he himself, you know.
Profiting massively.
What did he make? He's made $2 billion since this.
He's made most of his money.
Yeah, so, you know, and the rich are getting richer, and working families, you know, can't afford health care, they can't afford housing. He has this brilliant, big, beautiful bill threw 15 million people off of the health care they had in order to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. But these are issues he will not talk about. Data centers. He wants a green light for his oligarchic friends in big tech with no safeguards at all for working families. So he don't want to talk about any of those issues. So he comes up with this scale of the communists, whoever they may be, are trying to take over the world here.
What do you make of it? And Mayor Mamdani said this recently, that socialism isn't a scary enough word for them anymore. That in fact, people prefer socialism to capitalism.
Well, I think you look at what Mamdani is doing in New York City. Contrast that to Trump. Trump cuts funding for childcare. Mamdani thinks that we should have free and universal childcare. Mamdani is trying to build low-income and affordable housing in New York City. Trump is cutting funding. Mamdani opposes, as most of us do, the endless wars that are being fought right now through Trump, as well as the extremist Israeli government and their genocidal policies in Gaza. Trump supports Netanyahu. Who do you think is on the side of the American people on these issues? I think what we are talking about is where the American people want us to be. So what Trump has got to say is, oh, we can talk about democratic socialism. We'll come up with this boogeyman of communism.
It's not really landing. I don't really think people believe it.
Well, our job is to, and Abdul is doing a great job at this, to really take a deep breath and to say, what's going on in America? So let's what's going on in America? Again, in the economy, ordinary people are struggling. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. How's that? You got 1 out of 3 seniors are living in economic insecurity. You're an older worker today. Do you think you can retire with dignity? No. You can't. Your generation, younger generation. But the economists tell us that everything being equal, you're going to have a lower standard of living than your parents. You're going to buy your first home 12 years later than your parents did on average. That's what the American people are seeing with their own eyes. And they're asking, Why in the richest country in the history of the world is this happening? That's the question.
And you talk about the rich getting richer. It's not just in, playing and gaming, the stock market, or any of these prediction markets that I hate. That's a whole nother conversation. But they're also getting richer in the fact that their donations are going farther. Like you talk about the money that is being poured into Michigan or even into Minnesota. These are good investments, right?
God!
If you're a corporation and you give someone,
you got $100 back for every dollar that you put in. Look, Elon Musk, the richest guy in the world, put $290 million into Trump's presidential campaign. Pay off for him? Absolutely.
worked out well.
It worked out very well. So did the other billionaires. But I think the question that's out there is, instead of us making sure that all of our people have health care, why are we cutting and throwing people off of the healthcare system that exists right now? Why are we allowing the big tech oligarchs in AI to run ramshod over our economy rather than say, hey, wait a minute, we're not going to let you eliminate tens of millions of jobs, destroy our privacy, impact the mental health of our kids, maybe bring us to an existential threat if AI actually becomes independent of human control. So people are asking hard questions in a very difficult moment in American history. And I think folks like Abdul are providing serious answers. And I think that's why he's going to win.
And Peggy Flanagan is as well. You talk about Donald Trump not wanting these questions asked. There are a lot of people in the Democratic Party who don't want these questions asked as well. Earlier in the week, Rahm Emanuel had some words for both you and myself. He said yourself and the Bernie bros were a big problem, and we're tearing the Democratic Party apart, and it's all a mess, and it's terrible, and we can't have it. And it's because our ideas are too radical. They don't work. That is a framing that I don't think anyone believes. We talk about what people believe right now. You were just in Minnesota. In that Senate race, do you think people are believing that Peggy Flanagan and her ideas are too radical?
I think people see Peggy as a very decent, caring human being whose ideas really represent where the working families of Minnesota are. It is no longer radical. I mean, you tell me, is it radical to say that healthcare is a human right?
No.
Is it radical to say, why are we spending twice as much per capita and we're the only major country not to guarantee healthcare to all people? Very radical idea. Is it a radical idea? Go to Republican areas. Say, do you think billionaires should stop paying their fair share of taxes at a time when they're getting richer and richer? Yeah, we do. Is it a radical idea to say that we should not be spending huge amounts of money on a military engaged in endless wars in Iran, a war which never should have been fought, unconstitutional? It's not. So I think what people like Peggy is doing in Minnesota, Abdul is doing in Michigan, are asking very simple questions about why in the richest country on earth our people do not have a better standard of living, and why we are worried that our kids may even have a lower standard of living than their parents. And those questions and their proposals are resonating in a way that the Democratic establishment is not.
Especially when you have such a contrast up against, since the last time that we talked, both of our close personal friend Elon Musk really hit a real great financial goal that I think we were all cheering for. He became the world's first trillionaire, which is in and of itself an abomination. But it seems like these people have just become, and we talked about this the last time we spoke, more arrogant in their hoarding of wealth, that they think that they are so special. You have spent your whole career talking about the billionaire class. Did you ever think it would get to the trillionaire class?
Well, I didn't, but above and beyond that, your point is well taken. Look, we have always had greedy capitalists. Nothing new about that. And, guys on top always wanted to make more money. They were always anti-union, anti-worker. Nothing new about that. These guys are a special breed. I really do believe that they see themselves as brilliant. These big tech entrepreneurs developing this extraordinary technology called AI, robotics, and they have a divine right to rule. Who the hell do you think you are? They're worth hundreds of billions of dollars. They own these incredibly huge corporations. They will make the decisions. And how dare you think that you can question them? They know better than you. And by the way, if things get bad, they're prepared to go into their bunkers in New Zealand or whatever. And they're pretty open about it. Many of these guys are pretty open that they really do not believe in democracy, people like Thiel and others.
Isn't it so wild that when we have these questions about the future, about what our planet will look like, about what our economy will look like, what AI will look like, these are the people who tell us that we're asking ridiculous questions, yet they are planning for nuclear fallout?
Look, here's the bottom line. And again, I'm glad you're asking this question because it's not asked in the establishment media, certainly not in the halls of Congress. Here's the bottom line. Never before in American history have so few people held so much wealth and so much power. And these people are sitting there saying, we are going to transform humanity. Ain't that cool?
Yeah.
We're going to bring in robots. We're going to wipe out manufacturing jobs. We're going to wipe out transportation jobs. We're going to have kids addicted to their screens. I saw a statistic. It really blew me away. I don't know if you've seen it. 40% of children 2 years of age or younger have screens. All right. And in many ways, they are addicted to screens. What does that mean to the future? They're sitting up there making huge amounts of money, planning the future of the world. And all we are saying is, sorry, we do not grant you the right to have this power. The people themselves will have to determine what the future is, not you.
I want to talk about the kids and the screens, because this is a problem with my generation, a problem with AI. Well, I think it's through all generations. But I was talking with a friend last night who has a surgery upcoming. This is someone who I care very deeply about in my life, and they were talking to ChatGPT about medical advice for the procedure after and before. And I just continue to see so many people who are having these conversations and kind of befriending these large language models. I'm just worried about it.
You should be. And look, it's a huge discussion. We don't have the time, it's a multi-hour discussion, but it's nothing wrong with getting advice, I think, from, ChatGPT about medical issues. Although there are problems there as well. They may not be.
They'll be happy to hear you defend them on that.
But they're not, nothing wrong with that. But the issue is, what does concern me is the amount of time that people spend on their screens. So if I am spending 8 hours a day on my screen, I am not talking to other human beings, I'm not saying hello to you, I'm not having a cup of coffee with you. What does this do to me as a human being? And you got little kids out there, kids, adolescents. I talked to a psychiatrist who works on addiction, getting kids off addiction. Do you know what the major issue that she's dealing with in her clinic? Is screen addiction. It's not drugs, it's screen. I worry very much that these kids have quote unquote companions, bots who are their companions.
Yeah.
What does that mean emotionally if you're relating to a bot and not another human being? Et cetera, et cetera. So it is a huge issue. It is moving very rapidly, and that's why I have called for two things: a moratorium on data centers to slow this thing up so that we can get a handle on it, and also an AI sovereign wealth fund.
And I think that what you're also bringing up when you're talking about the screens is something that I worry about so much. We talked about loneliness in my generation the last time that we spoke. I just don't think that there's enough focus on community.
Exactly.
And how we shape our policy around, like, I've been kind of thinking about this politics of, like, quote unquote hanging out. Like, our politics should move towards a place where it is easier to hang out and to be into an experience at third space.
At the end of the day, all we got is human beings.
People just want to hang out and just be with each other.
And that's what we need. And that's how you grow. That's how you become a human being. And I worry very much about people becoming addicted to the screens. There's a movement out there. It's an interesting movement. It's called Let Kids Be Kids. You want to hear a radical idea? All right, viewers, brace yourself.
Trump's going to call you a communist.
Yeah, maybe we should let kids go out and play with each other. Yeah. Oh, my God. How radical is that? Learn from each other. Figure out how you resolve problems by working it out together, right? Etc. So, again, all of this gets back to a very small number of multi-zillionaires who are pushing an agenda that will have a profound impact on every man, woman, and child in our country, on our environment, on our democracy, all right? You are more than aware of the deep fakes that are out there, how sophisticated they are. They could put words into your mouth that you never said.
People do AI me, and they do shows on YouTube of me, but it's different, or they take my words, or they take my face. And
Yeah, and guess what? What happens if you're running for the United States Senate?
Bit
Bit of a problem, huh?
A bit of a problem.
So you're reaching the moment where people, and they, when they're on the internet, won't know what's true, what is fiction, your privacy rights. Hey, forget about it.
Yeah.
Every financial transaction you made, somebody knows it. Every email that you send, somebody knows it. Every website you visited. So what this whole AI revolution about is unbelievably transformational. We got to make sure it works to improve human life, not harm human life.
And that's how the billionaire classes and the trillionaire class has great PR. Like, no one's got better PR than the billionaires.
They own it.
They do own it. And they own the media increasingly. And that's why they're able to go out and try to frame all of this is such a wonderful thing. It's going to be utopia. But Elon Musk ran up against someone who was not kind of willing to do that bidding. And I wanted to show you this clip because Elon had a thought about what the future of AI is going to bring. And I think you might find this pretty interesting.
On how then you make money, because in the end people are buying your shares because they expect you to make money. Do you sell
I'll
the
make another
robots?
prediction. Money won't matter in 2036.
I'm not sure that the people who bought your shares think that money won't matter in 2036.
Well, what do you want money for? You want money for goods and services, right? You want money for, obviously, food, housing, transport, entertainment. Well, if that is so abundant that there's more, that the robots and AI are providing more goods and services than any human could possibly consume, what do you need money for in that case?
But you're
Well, yeah. Well, that's great. The trillionaire or the guys who are 700-800.
Yeah, he's lost a little bit of it.
Yeah, I know. we worry about him, maybe he's a little confused now because of his loss of money. But, I mean, money won't matter, really. How are people, robots are going to do everything for you? Is that what it is?
We already do have abundance as well, it's so crazy to say that, well, there will be abundance, so it'll be fine. We have it now.
Look, this is a smart guy, but they live in such an isolated world. We have abundance. Talk to the 60% of people who every week are struggling to pay the rent, pay for groceries, pay for healthcare. I mean, to go out to ordinary Americans and say, we're living in a society of abundance is insane, when a majority of people are living paycheck to paycheck. So I think, this is, again, a guy who believes they have the divine right to determine the future. Money doesn't matter. Hey, yeah, I got 800 billion. Doesn't matter to me. You're trying to live on so there you go.
It is funny that they do the all will be fine in the future, but don't talk to us about the future. Although we are living in this present right now, that
And
people
by
are
the way,
struggling.
just as one small example of the nonsense that Musk is talking about, if people are not working, how are you going to be how people are going to be not paying taxes, right? You don't have a job, you're not paying taxes. If you're not paying taxes, how do we have Social Security, which is dependent upon your payroll tax? How do we have Medicare? How do we have Medicaid? How do we have public education? Who's going to determine that? Where Mr. Musk going to channel that money? How do we run the government? Or maybe we don't have a government. Maybe Mr. Musk and his friends will sit around and run it all.
The privatization of everything becomes renting. Everything has become renting. Everything's paywalled. Everything's a subscription. Do you know that printers now, some people have to pay subscriptions for their printers? That they've quite literally taken everything away. It's a future without ownership is the hope. And that's why I think the debate currently happening in the Democratic Party about our future is so important. This is a debate that's been ongoing with great primary victories of progressive challengers, beating incumbents or progressives or Democratic Socialists winning across the country. And you've heard a lot of people say that if you're not going to just kind of fit in nicely with the Democratic establishment, you shouldn't be a Democrat.
Well, maybe the converse is true. Maybe the Democratic establishment should begin to understand they are way, way out of touch with where the American people are, that we don't need a party anymore which is dominated by wealthy campaign contributors. So when you talk about the Democratic establishment, it's really relatively few people. And they're pretty open about it. You know, the donor class said, you should be the candidate for the Senate. That's what the donor class said. You should be running for president of the United States. I don't think that's where the American people are. I think what the Democratic Party should become is a party of working people, of young people of color, of people who understand what it's like to struggle, who are prepared to take on the oligarchs, who want to see an economy that works for all, not just the few. We have got to raise simple questions. We're the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Why don't we have the best educational system in the world? Why don't we have the best healthcare system in the world? Why are we not building new hospitals in rural America rather than shutting them down? Why aren't we attracting well-paid young people to become teachers, because we know how important teachers are? Why aren't we leading the world in combating climate change? Why aren't we controlling AI to make sure it works for us, not just for Mr. Musk? Those aren't radical questions. Those are the questions on the minds of working people. And if the Democratic leadership can't ask those questions because they are busy getting campaign contributions from the very billionaire class, we will see where the Democratic Party goes. But I think the future is with us.
And those questions have always been framed as kind of, for some reason, well, it's because, you know, those in charge love the status quo, as anti-American. Now they're being, or anti-patriotic, to challenge why we can't do better. Now you're seeing the same thing with the Democratic Party. You shouldn't be challenging the status quo, but that is what's getting people off the couch, which is what you talked about after the 2024 election, how we've lost people, mostly working class people, who either voted for Trump or aren't going to show up. What is it about, though, Abdul Sayed and Peggy Flanagan that make you feel encouraged about a future in which we do get people off the couch?
Because they have the guts to talk to the issues that are on the minds of ordinary Americans. It's not more complicated than that. You know, you may not, it's a complicated, crazy world. We may not have all of the answers. But at least we're able to verbalize and say, you know what, there is something fundamentally wrong when billionaires can buy elections. Right? And we talked about that a moment ago. You go out, you're a conservative Republican. You think it's okay for one person to be able to put in hundreds of millions of dollars to decide who the presidential candidate is?
And an investment, right?
An investment. Very few people believe that. But if you're a leader in the Democratic or Republican Party, you certainly do believe it, because that's where you get your bread and butter from.
Last time that we spoke, you watched a clip of someone that we're not a fan of, and it was Kevin O'Leary, and it went really viral. And I think it was just because you were so put off by what he said. We've talked about the people who are out of touch. He's still doing this bit about my generation not having lunch or drinking coffee or anything. I wanted you to see this.
Stop buying coffee for $5.50. I can walk around with anybody for a day and show you that they're wasting 15% of their money, sometimes 20. Stupid stuff. You know, you go to work, you spend $15 on a sandwich. What are you, an idiot? It costs you 99 cents to make a sandwich at home and bring it with you. So what if you bring it with you? Bring your own water if you have to, or your own drink, or bring your own coffee.
So that is the economic problem, that young people are spending,
having lunch?
Going out to fancy restaurants. I think maybe the economic problem might be that young people are worried they're going to have a lower standard of living than their parents, that they're living in their parents' home because they can't afford the rent or the money they need to buy a new house. And young people are very worried about what the future will bring. But this is an example of somebody who's way out of touch with the reality facing young people.
And it's why my generation is encouraged by people who are, you know, speaking to the issues that we care about, the Zoran Mondanis, the Abdul Sayeds, Peggy Flanagan, and of course yourself. Senator, I always appreciate you joining me.
Jack, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
All right, look, what you guys are doing is enormously important, and I think you're bringing a sense of reality to millions of people who desperately need to hear it.
I really appreciate it.
Always so fantastic to be joined for the second time on the show by Senator Bernie Sanders. Like I said, someone who I have so looked up to for so long. And we've got another guest who is just like that, Jon Favreau of Pod Save America. Tommy, I hope I don't I hope I don't make you jealous by speaking with your co-host, but let's get into my great conversation with Jon. Jon Favreau, thank you so much for joining me on Sunday.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
Yeah, of course. You may not be thanking me in a second, because we're probably going to end up after these set of questions where our good friend Brian Tyler Cohen is, and that's on Trump's enemies of the state list, all the media offenders. Because I just want to talk about MAGA health for a little bit right now. It's obviously the topic of conversation with Mitch McConnell, which has allowed the Donald Trump health stuff to go under the rug a little bit. You covered on the Crooked channel a few days ago the fact that Donald Trump is snoozing at Lindsey Graham's funeral. He's like playing with Tic Tacs. Some people think he soiled himself. Let rip. What do you think is going on with the health? This is my favorite conversation.
This could be a boring take, or maybe it's counterintuitive, but like, I just think he's an old fucking guy who is president of the United States, which is a tiring job for like 50 and 60 something presidents, let alone someone his age and in his shape, which is not the greatest. But I think like if Trump was running for another term, if this was like the first term, I would be like, yes, of course we should be talking about the health more, because this guy's trying to run for election and I don't think people are going to want to elect him again. But my view of it now is like, if the guy fucking, is unhealthy and can't do the job tomorrow, great. I don't like what, like, that's wonderful. But like, I don't know if that we're going to like uncover anything that's going to have lead Donald Trump to step down, or his cabinet to turn on him, or Congress to turn on him. And I think if you ask most Americans like what they don't like about Donald Trump, a million other things come up before the health.
You don't think the weakness thing is a part of it? Because I always just go back to the moment. It was, what was it, like the Florida Panthers? It was the last Stanley Cup champion who was at the White House, and Trump was talking to his favorite people, big, strong guys. And he's like, wow, what strong guys? We love strong guys. He's like, they're so beautiful. I'm sorry that I always do this. People hate it. Some people like it. It's fine. It's not good. Don't encourage it.
I think it's better than, I'd say it's a like 70th percentile.
Okay, I can rock with that. I'm good with that. But he's like, you guys are so big and tough, but I have the U.S. military. So it's obviously like a crutch of him feeling bad about his current, kind of physical state. Do you not think that the weakness and how much it drives all the other stuff that he does, is that something that you think that wouldn't be top line messaging for you, would it?
No, I think it's that he's a moron and he has...
there's definitely that.
Yeah, he has gotten us into a disastrous war that is expanding and made everything more expensive. And he has bumbled his way through his second term by just sort of using the government to make himself rich and punish everyone else who doesn't like him. And that's bad. And the Republicans who enabled that should be punished at the ballot box.
So this seems like a good message. Have you done this before? Have you done this for a living?
That's my main take. And it's also like how Donald Trump lost a step. Donald Trump never had a step.
No.
There was no steps to lose.
Well, I mean, like if you go back and listen to 2016, the words are coming out a little smoother than they are now. Like that is the stark difference. But you think that the incompetence thing is the way to go. Obviously, he's a dipshit and a fuck up, and so is everyone else in his administration. And a crook, yes, and that contributes to all of it. Do you think that then the corruption ties into the stupidity? One of my favorite moments of the corruption, and this kind of contributes a little bit to the stupidity because it was Vance being kind of an asshole and not realizing what he was saying, but it was when he was doing the Carolyn Levitt job and he was hosting the press conference and he was asked about all the insider trading Vance was, and he goes, well, it's not like Trump is behind the Resolute desk with his Robinhood account open, and he thought that was like a big own. And I was like, you're admitting that there's other people involved in the corruption then, that this is like a wide-ranging thing.
Also, it's like, yeah, don't worry. We were under no illusion that Donald Trump would know how to run his Robinhood account.
He doesn't post his own tweets, his own bleats and stuff. Yeah.
I actually think the other thing with Trump is he doesn't care anymore. Like, he doesn't care what people think of him. He's in such a bubble that he's letting himself ramble more, as old people tend to do, right? And he's like, I'm going to tell the stories I want to tell, and I'm going to say what I want to say, and I don't give a shit. And like, he's always been like this, but I do think advanced age has made him even more like that, because he's just there. It's fantasy camp for him.
Yeah.
It's his second term as president. He's having a good time. He's renovating what he wants to renovate. He's stealing all the money he can, and everyone else can go fuck off.
We should let him be first lady. I think that'd be great. We should make a deal. You can have a ballroom. You can have the maple trees. You can do the gold. He loves the gold on everything. And then
we should set him up with his own AI presidency where it's like a Truman Show.
Little sandbox.
Yeah, exactly. And he gets to do everything he wants, and people tell him he's great, and he can watch whatever else and pretend that he's making big boy decisions. And then in reality, we just have him cloistered away on the side.
I think it's a good plan. Is that what you were? I feel like, not to flash back to simpler times, but when he won back in 2024, geez, we've gotten so old. Was that your thought? Is that what you thought he was going to do? Like you just thought he was going to do? Well, there's a little bit of a revenge, but did you think it was going to be a more golfing than all of this? What do you think has led us to this exact path?
I think it's entirely expected that this was going to happen. The only thing that has surprised me is the speed with which he's been able to fuck everything up so badly. And I also think I thought that he would do all of the bad stuff he did. I didn't think it would be maybe not as bad in some areas. I didn't think he would be as unpopular as he is right now. That's been a pleasant surprise.
We're learning.
Yeah, I thought that maybe he would learn on the political front how to do more damage while maintaining popularity, and he still has not learned that lesson. So that's probably, that's one of the silver linings, I guess. But the rest of it, you could see it coming. And the only big surprise now is that a lot of this didn't happen in the first term, and I guess that's because there were more people around him who weren't quite as insane as the people who are currently around him.
Yeah, and willing to go along with it. It's also the access thing where it's like, these people have their access to more concentrated power to do the crime that they like, whether it be, like financial or any other sorts. So you really like the idiot narrative. Is that like, how would you package that if you were James Tallarico right now, or do you like what he's doing in Texas?
I mean, look, I think he's an idiot, but I think that the corruption narrative is the cleanest, and I think has the virtue of being true. Is what does Trump care about in reality? He cares about himself. That's it. And he cares about making money. He cares about being loved, being liked, being feared, whatever it may be. And so everything he does is about making sure that he gets rich and that he, has these cabinet meetings that are just like suck fests, where everyone,
a technical term?
That is a technical term, where everyone just goes around the table and tells him how great he is. And if the rest of the country doesn't like him, he doesn't want to hear that. He just wants people around him who are going to say yes, help him get rich, help him punish his enemies, and that's it. And I think that is the truth. I think people are now seeing, I think most people in the country see that that's the truth. I was just looking at a Navigator poll, where they specifically focused on Trump voters who voted for him in 24 and now regret their vote. And they had a word cloud of all the reasons people gave for why they regret their vote. And the war was the biggest word in the word cloud. Economy was next, and then promises was next. So a lot of people thought that he made promises to bring prices down and keep us out of wars, and he broke both of those promises and is corrupt and making a lot of money for himself instead. That to me is the whole story.
Yeah, and it really affords the kind of counter narrative for Dems that we really want right now. Because I think if you did our word cloud still, or at least right after election night, or really in the beginning of the administration more than any other time, I think like kind of feckless and weak popped up a lot of what people thought of the party. You have obviously had a little bit of criticism for the party and specifically the DNC. If you were running things right now, what would be the Fav doctrine? What would you be doing?
It's a great question. I would love everyone to get on the same message. That would be nice. I would find a new story of Trump's corruption every single day to highlight, and then talk about what Democrats would do differently. I do think the party is suffering from a look. Most people think that politicians are lying anyway and corrupt anyway. Yeah. And so trust in institutions is low. Democratic Party is it doesn't escape that at all. But I think everyone says, oh, Democrats need to show fight. Yeah, fight also. But if you want people to vote for you, you got to tell them what you're going to do. You got to tell people what you're going to do for them. You got to say, what are you going to do for their lives? And I don't know that many people understand right now what the Democratic Party is fighting for. And so, the first challenge was they're too weak and they're feckless and they don't fight. But we've now nailed or maybe we haven't nailed it, but like some Democrats will say, okay, well, people want me to fight, so I'm going to fight. All right, what are you fighting for? And who are you fighting for? And I don't know that most people in the country understand who and what Democrats are fighting for. And I think it would behoove the party to sharpen that message ahead of the midterms, and certainly in the 2028 primary.
Well, let's say you don't take over and it's got to happen on its own, even though you can try. There's still an opportunity out there. How do you think that's going to shake out? Is it going to be someone who is running in 2028 is going to have to kind of set that agenda and be the forward facing, like, you know, I think it was Tim Miller who talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where it's like, you know, the Democratic Party seems to kind of be suffering from a similar problem to the NBA, which is like you kind of need the transcendent, like you need the guy. Like, of course, we still have my glorious King LeBron James, and I think the NBA scheduling kind of plays that out and how important he is. But it's like you got the Wembanyama. You also have a Zoran, right? You have a Zoran kind of dictating what the party should be doing. But do you think it's going to need to be like a face of the franchise type of thing in which like Democrats kind of all get behind, whether it be an Ossoff, an AOC, a Gavin, like, and their kind of tone setting? Or do you think it's just going to be our collection of, okay, we won this Senate race and, you know, this kind of member of Congress is popping off a little bit more? Do you think it's all going to trickle down from one person?
You need a leader. You need a leader. I know, you know, we're all commies, workers of the world unite. We're all about grassroots movements and revolutions and all that. But and in all seriousness, I of course like believe deeply in movement politics. But every successful movement, every successful political party, all the successful like times in our history where we look back on, there was a leader. And just the way that the two-party system works in this country, parties that are in the wilderness, parties that are out of power, they tend to get back into power, and with an actual leader who can shape the agenda of the party and be the face of that party. And look, I remember in 2008, like we were, you know, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and John Edwards and all the rest of that field. They were just the first step was running against George Bush. George Bush is terrible, blah, blah, blah. And like we did that. And then at one point, it worked well. But one of the ways we broke out in that primary was say, okay, given George Bush is not going to be president again, and we know that he has led us through a catastrophic 8 years. The question now is, what's next? Yeah. What is next for America? What is next for the Democratic Party? And ultimately, you're going to need a candidate who can answer that question in a way that is compelling and interesting to people and doesn't make them fall asleep, because then when you say what's next for America, you give like a laundry list of boring fucking incrementalist policies, right? And so you need someone with charisma. And I do think we like underrate charisma as a quality in candidates that we like, because we think it's, I don't know, too showy or phony or artificial or whatever. But like some people, Zoran Mamdani, and
he's got the sauce,
right?
Plenty of it.
There's plenty of DSA candidates that have run and lost, and there's a reason Zoran Mamdani and AOC are so popular. There's a reason Bernie Sanders is popular. There's a reason Barack Obama was popular, right? There's a reason that Donald Trump was popular. There are a lot of other politicians with their same views, but at the end of the day, it does take a certain level of talent and charisma to rise above the rest.
And many a time you have said that you are very much in the prediction game, and that is what you do professionally, correct?
Professionally, yes. Only. I am a human Kalshi.
Well, not sponsored. We are not sponsored. There is no sponsorship. We don't take the money. We don't want the money. Polymarket, stay away. Yeah. I don't like the predictions. It's defrauding and stealing all the money away from our generation, right? You're 20.
Yes. Yeah. No. I'm 28. Right. Yeah.
It's good. It's good look to you. The skin. One skin. Do you guys do one skin?
We do one skin. Yeah. But I do. I have my own little secret, which is just water.
And love and good feelings in Los Angeles. But you're not in the prediction game. Okay. Right now, who is being set up correctly in the wake of the South Carolina announcement? Do you think that changes the game? For those who haven't seen the news, South Carolina is going to be the first state in the Democratic primary right now. It seems like New Hampshire doesn't want that to be the case, but it doesn't really seem like it's going to matter. Do you think this actually changes anything, or do you think the way that the calendar's set up, you got Michigan a little bit later, of course, you got Nevada. Do you think it matters, or is this kind of shaping your perception of who's going to be a front runner?
I think it matters tremendously, and every single candidate and campaign will base their entire strategy around the early state calendar and the order of the early states, for sure. But Who does it advantage? I think that is less clear than some people are guessing, because first of all, you don't know the field, right?
Yeah.
And so there's two variables you need to know for the beginning of the primary. You need to know which states are going to be the early states, what order they're in, which we know now, but you also need to know the rest of the field. And so until we find out all the people who are running, it's hard to handicap it. I also think that like every state obviously has different demographics, different ideologies of voters, but I do think it's balanced enough now in the 5 states that they've chosen for the first 5 states that everyone with different strengths among different constituencies will have a chance to prove themselves at somewhere along the way. So if you are set up well in South Carolina, that's great. But if you win South Carolina, then you've
got to keep winning.
Yeah, like someone winning South Carolina is not going. That story is not going to last until the end of the month, because there's going to be Nevada the next week and New Hampshire and whatever else. And so you've got to build a campaign that plays to your strengths, but also make sure that you're performing well and playing well in states where you might not be as strong. I do think that having Michigan and Virginia at the end is going to be important, because I think if a candidate can win Michigan and Virginia both before Super Tuesday, that campaign is probably going to be set up to win.
Yeah.
And so I think that most of these campaigns will be thinking about, and so it's either have you won some of the early states and now you want to, put a period on it by winning Michigan and Virginia, or have you been doing somewhat poorly in the early states, but you still have enough money to compete in Michigan and Virginia, and so that's your last stand? Like, whatever it is, I think those will be important states. They'll also be like the 2 most expensive states to run in.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, like people who don't have the money by then are not going to be able to compete and will probably peter out. And that's probably by design. But I think Michigan and Virginia will tell you a lot about who is going to end up being the nominee.
I want to talk a little Republican 2028, but there was, I think it was an Emerson poll out earlier in the week that I think had Kamala Harris in like 4th or 5th amongst a pretty packed crowd. It wasn't like anyone was missing off the list. It's not like, AOC wasn't there, or Pete or Gavin or anything. If you were in her camp, what would be the advice? Would it be run? Would it be kingmaker? Would it be, what do you think?
I mean, I would say it's up to her. It's up to her, right?
Yeah,
like you've got to decide. Now, if she said, I want to run, I would say, why do you want to run? And what do you have to say about where the country is and where it's going and where you want to take it? What have you learned about last time in your last campaign about what went wrong and what could go right this time? And tell me what you'd tell a crowd if they were asking you, why do you want to be president? And just like put all the polls down, don't ask for any advice, just like, what do you want to do? Why are you in this race?
Do you think the Zoran meetings are, obviously I think in my opinion, he's the leader of the party right now. At least maybe it's him, maybe it's Bernie in terms of people who have the most popular support. Do you think that's a beneficial thing? Everyone meeting with Zoran, or do you think that reflects well on anyone's individual ability to kind of come to a place on their own? Or I know these meetings happen, but what is your takeaway from kind of everyone? I just had Gavin on a couple of weeks ago, and he says that they have a great texting relationship.
I think my takeaway there is advisors tell them Zoran's, maybe one of the most popular figures in the party, and you're going to need lefties if you want to win the presidency, and so you should talk with Zoran, and hopefully that will leak out, and so people will know that you talked to Zoran. that's what I think that's about.
The positive leak outs, the leak outs that we like. But Bashir, I wanted to ask you about this before we move to Republicans. What do you think the Mitch saga has done for him? What have you made of the Mitch saga, just generally?
I think it's wild. Like,
it's fucking crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy, and I'm not.
What are you doing?
So I'm like, I tend to try to avoid the conspiracies.
Well, you came to the wrong place.
I was going to say, but it's look, maybe because I'm just naive. That's why I don't fall for or I don't get into conspiracies, because I assume that it's like too hard to pull that off. But like when I really dug into it, I'm like, okay, well, I don't think he's dead, but
he's not alive. Like he's not. That's what I keep coming back to.
Like, it's like, why can't we hear his voice?
Because
like,
he's not in speech therapy, so he can talk. Apparently, maybe no.
Right. The second picture is even more is even weirder to me than the first because
He looks
it's like,
good.
He looks good, but he's also posed like the first, and like wouldn't you want to switch it up a little bit after the first? Like,
No newspaper too.
Also, how has no reporter has been able to like uncover this down in Kentucky? No one has like sat outside the rehab center where he is to try to like get a comment from Elaine Chao or someone who's visiting him. It's so bizarre to me. And what I think about it is that there's a big part of the story we're not hearing. I don't know what it is. I couldn't guess what again, like I don't want to dive into the conspiracies here, but this is clearly the explanation that they have given us so far is clearly not the whole story. That I feel confident about.
This is why I'm so interested in the Trump health stuff, because it does come back to like who has access to these people, who has access to the concentration of power that is clearly not having decisions made with it by a single person thinking of representing a constituency, right? Like the White House is open to whoever can get close. Trump is concentrating power for himself, but sure, everyone else who wants access. And it's the same thing with Mitch. So if you were in the Bashir shoes, what would you be doing, both with like Mitch McConnell and the rest of this term in mind, but also 2028? Because he clearly wants to run.
He clearly wants to run. I think that this is, whether it was intentional or not, this was a good way for a mild-mannered center-left governor of a small state who may be unknown to get some attention, which is hard.
Do you think it's all been good though?
I don't know. I guess I haven't really looked into it as closely, but I guess some people are. What do people think that Andy Bashir is going to do?
I just think that because he said that he was looking for a way to move around the state legislature, and he believed the Constitution afforded him the ability to replace the sitting or the unsatted senator, that he thought he was in more control. I think that's what people are kind of maybe not irked by, but they want him to do.
He definitely doesn't have that. Like he's governor of the state. You can't just kick out a sitting senator.
No,
it's just it's not because like you can't do it because it would be like breaking decorum. It's just like illegal. Like you can't but
illegal has never stopped other people.
It's true.
I think that's what people are up against right now, where it's like, if he tried to do it, like, and by try to do it, I don't mean like say just like, okay, well, now I'm the senator. They're not going to put the cuffs on him. I think that's what people, when we talk about like what's illegal or not. And I know you don't want to look ridiculous, but I think that's what people are kind of up against is like, are we putting enough pressure? Because we don't know anything. And like, how do we get answers if it's not standing outside the hospital?
Yeah. I mean, maybe he could go stand outside the hospital. Maybe Bashir could do a press conference outside the rehab center and demand answers that way, I suppose. But like, I don't blame or credit Andy Bashir for any of this. It's like, what is he? He's the governor. He has certain powers as governor. He's trying to get him on the phone. He's probably done more than other Democrats to try to figure out what's going on here. But also, I don't need Mitch McConnell back in the Senate right now. Like I'm very, very fine with them being
for Mitch.
Yeah, I'm all good with them being a vote down in the Senate. There's one less Republican, one less Mitch McConnell. Like I don't want to see him back in the Senate. If there's some kind of a special election that could happen and Thomas Massey jumps in and screws it up for the Republican, I love that. But I don't know that that's happening either. It seems like hopefully Charles Berger can, win and things can change. He could win in November, but like it's it's a pretty Republican.
It's a little less likely. All right, I want to end on. You're a busy guy. I'll let you go. I want to end on a little bit of hate fest.
Cool.
JD Vance. I just want your current JD thoughts right now, and then I got a question about Republican 2028.
People haven't asked me about JD Vance in a while. I haven't talked about him in a while, but
really,
yeah. Well, this is part of my take here. I'm a little worried that he has, because he's very online. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit worried that he has internalized what people think of him, which is not much. And I think he is horrible in every way, but I do think he's smart. And I think he's trying to recalibrate his presentation ahead of 2028 so that he is not so distasteful to every single person who comes in contact with him on whatever medium
did
they're seeing him.
Did you see that Trump has been sharing privately that he's excited about the weight that he lost?
I think I did see something like that. Yeah, so there's
the crazy thing from Trump, like, wow, he's so skinny.
There's the weight, but there's also like he's not shit posting. He's not going back and forth on Twitter anymore.
You got him a couple times. That's why.
Yeah, well, that I'm sure someone told him like this guy is a fucking
danced on his shit.
This former Obama staffer with the podcast. You're just like spending your days arguing with this fucking kid, which is what I would have said to him. That would have been my advice. Like, why are you replying to him? So yeah, I'm a little successful politicians, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, soon
to be Jon Favreau,
Zoran Mondani, they're good at code switching. They have either grown up with the foot in different kinds of worlds, and so they know how to either, it's like you're a class trader or you're biracial or whatever it may be, you know how to speak to different audiences. JD Vance is that. JD Vance was in the elite, in the establishment elite that he now rails against. He was part of that once he wrote Hillbilly Elegy and had, worked with Peter Thiel and all that kind of stuff. So he knows what that establishment and what more liberal voices maybe, or less crazy right-wing voices want to hear. And so I would not underestimate JD Vance's ability to put on a different human suit and try to change perception of him. That's one thing I'm worried about with JD Vance.
Well, you just gave me the perfect pivot to my last question. I think you should do this for a living. There's no one who's done that better than Tucker. Tucker was on Dancing with the Stars. He was doing that. Like Tucker has gone all over the place with who he is. It's a lot of plaid now, and he's in Maine, which I think he was always in Maine, I guess.
Yeah, but now he's there like full time. Yeah, well, I guess he's got a house in Florida too.
Yeah, it must be nice. Doesn't he have like the chicken nugget fortune, or is that his wife?
I don't know. Does he? Maybe
he's got some money.
He's got enough. Yeah.
He's got enough. He's got plenty. But Tucker, he does the code switching really well. He does the multiple human skins very well. He's probably got some, given just the situation.
Yeah, no.
Is he a big worry to you, like he is for me?
Not really.
Then calm me down. Tell me why I should relax on Tucker.
Are you? Are you saying like to run for president?
I'm worried about him. Yeah.
I don't think he wears well with enough of the right people that you need. Like, I think that Tucker Carlson, I mean, maybe if he wanted to, he doesn't seem like he definitely wants to. Really? I don't quite get that from him. I think he could. I think he'd be formidable if he tried. I just don't know if he'll actually try. I've also noticed that since he has broken from Trump, whenever they throw his name into a poll, his approval rating with Republicans is way down. Now that could change, but I think I worry about him playing. I actually think that JD Vance has realized that he can't lose the Tucker wing of the party, and that there's going to be a little bit of a JD Vance Tucker Carlson alliance, that he'll try to get back into Tucker's good graces, and that Tucker will actually welcome him back in his good graces, and that Tucker could be a very influential force in helping the JD Vance 2028 operation get off the ground.
Terrifying.
So that part I worry about. Yeah.
Thank you for leaving us.
Are you calmed down? Yeah.
No. Why would I be? It's great. Everything's going to be fantastic. I really appreciate I hope I don't make you feel old here. I've been listening to y'all's show since, I'll call it high school. It was middle school though. And, independent media has been so important in this era. And that's largely because of what y'all have been able to build for so long. And I appreciate your voice. It's had a lot of influence and impact on me. It's had a lot of influence and impact on other people. And I really appreciate you joining me today, man.
It makes me feel extremely old, but that is an extremely kind thing to say. And congratulations on all your success. And the best part of hearing that is knowing that people like you are taking the baton and have decided to start your own thing as well. So that makes me need more voices like that out there. So I'm really happy you're doing that, and I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Appreciate it. A pleasure being joined by Jon Favreau. Independent media and independent media collabing, hanging out. It's something that we need more of. And we also need more Democrats in red states, flipping those red states. And that is why we are going to be speaking with Gina Hinojosa right now. We're going to have a great interview. State Representative Gina Hinojosa, thank you so much for joining me on Sunday.
It's my pleasure.
We are seeing some really fantastic news out of Texas over these past couple of weeks and months. And I feel like your campaign is really starting to get the attention that it deserves. A part of that package of great news coming out of Texas, especially a new poll that we just saw earlier this week, which has you trailing Governor Abbott by only 1 point. What do you think makes this election different than others that we've seen in the past out of Texas?
Well, in 2026, politics is all mixed up because people just want change.
Yeah.
Right? People are putting off partisan labels and they just want somebody who's going to work for them. There is a level of corruption happening in government right now across this country and in Texas in a big way that turns off people, rightfully so. And they just want to vote for somebody who they can believe in, who's going to work for them, who's not going to be focused on culture wars, but about really centering their lives and making them better.
And I think you've really addressed one of the problems that's starting to get maybe more attention than any other, talking about data centers. Is that position that you've come to, calling for that moratorium, one that came out of speaking to voters who are increasingly raising this concern, or where does that passion for kind of putting the kibosh on this kind of crazy flooding of cash and infrastructure and building that doesn't seem too productive come from?
Right. Well, actually, data centers are a prime example of that kind of corruption that is in the system in government right now in Texas in a big way. Greg Abbott has received millions of dollars in campaign contributions from data center moneyed interests. And so when we went to the Panhandle, visited with people in these communities where all these data centers have descended because Greg Abbott passed the most generous tax break for data centers in the whole country. And now we are being really inundated in our rural areas with these data centers. People are mad. There are no rules in these data centers. There are no regulations. This is in the unincorporated area, right? Not in city limits. So no land use rules, regulations at all to protect Texans. So Texans are angry about it. And I have called for a moratorium until the legislature can meet so that we can put some basic protections on these people that don't currently exist. People want a seat at the table. They want to say in if and how these data centers should come into their community, and they deserve it.
Yeah, especially when the lack of regulation that you're talking about has allowed these kind of nonstop. I don't know if you've seen the stories, data centers built so close to people's houses that the nonstop frequency that they're emitting are giving people like serious health issues. Have you heard these stories when visiting people who live so close to these things?
That's, yes, one of the examples. Also, eternal daylight, right? These data centers in these rural areas that are prized and really special because you can see the stars at night, for instance, right? There's a whole song about that, deep in the heart of Texas, right? Yep. And so to have eternal light, water concerns, especially in areas like the Panhandle where they already are concerned with drought, and contracts that are giving these data centers, Matador being the biggest in the world, that was started by our former governor, Rick Perry, has precedence in water rights over the actual people, citizens of that community. It's crazy. So this is the kind of stuff, the kind of abuses that are happening right now. Greg Abbott said next year he will work with the legislature to put in some basic protections. Well, so what has happened is everybody's trying to get their project in under the wire. He announced to all his donors, you got a year to get in with no rules. And that accounts for this mad rush that is happening right now. So he has the power to issue a moratorium now with an executive order and to call the legislature back today in an emergency special session to pass real reforms that empower people.
I think that it's such a connective tissue issue when you see, the governor saying, okay, like the money has come in now do whatever you want as quickly as possible before people can start to have their voice heard on this. We see that so often in our politics. How do you think that this issue, though, specifically, which has gotten so much attention kind of along the lines of other issues of corruption, connects to those that haven't? Like, what is a corruption issue that you wish people in Texas or just people around the country knew more about as it relates to the governor?
what I wish press would cover and what I wish people understood is that it's all about corruption. We, in Texas, at least it is, we are paying into a system that is working against us. The legislation that I see that gets passed in the Texas House, the only legislation we get to vote on that comes before us is pushed by moneyed interests. That is corrupt, right? And so it is the reason why people are turned off about government. It's the reason why people are turned off by capitalism, because they're experiencing this crony capitalism that we have in this country now. And in Texas, in a big way, Texas has become a pay-to-play state. And as a result, we have skyrocketing taxes, property taxes, but we have over 150 whole school districts operating at 4 days a week because they can't afford to operate at 5 days a week. Whole school districts. We have over 150 schools shutting down. We have the most uninsured in Texas, the most uninsured children in Texas. We have the most people being disconnected from their electricity because they can't afford to pay their bills. I mean, this list goes on and on. That is Greg Abbott's record. That's why the polling shows people want change. They know Greg Abbott. They know he's been there 12 years and they will not elect him to another 4. And that's the opportunity that we have in this election. So I'm running on saving the American dream, bringing back the American dream by saving Texas schools and putting money in your pocket. And that's it. That is the plan. It is short. It is simple because the plan should be as plain as the promise. And it's resonating.
Yeah, it's a campaign that seems to connect with an idea that government can work if we have the people who want to make it work and they're not taking orders from moneyed interest. You bring up the problems that you're seeing across Texas schools. That's part of the reason you got into politics, wasn't it?
Right. So I never meant to run for anything. I made my husband promise never to run for anything before we got married, in fact. But my son's school was going to be shut down. So I ran for the school board. And that fight for schools took me to the Texas House. And now what I see is what's happening to our schools is just happening in every part of our economy, our state, our government. And that's that it is the moneyed interests that are calling this shot. And people see it, people know it. So, I mean, just to give you an example, I said we have the most people who are disconnected from their electricity because they cannot afford to pay their bills. Well, that happened after Winter Storm Uri in 2021 when we had the Texas blackout and over 700 Texans died. Greg Abbott let the gas companies withhold gas until the price was so high they could make billions in profits. Record profits, right? He decided we would all foot the bill. Now we're all paying at least $40 more a month on our electricity bill. That's the Greg Abbott corruption tax, but it infects every part of our lives as Texas.
It does, and I'm sure that's what you're hearing a lot of on the ground when talking about those specific examples of corruption. What else are you hearing from voters on the day-to-day that again people maybe outside Texas aren't thinking about right now?
Yeah, well, just how hard life is. It is. Texas was known to be the land of opportunity. I joke that Frank Sinatra sang New York, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Texas was the opposite. If you can't make it here, you can't make it nowhere, right? We prided ourselves in that kind of opportunity. And now people more and more, let me tell you this story. It's shocking. Weekly now, I come across Texans who are donating plasma as a second job.
Yeah, that's crazy.
To pay their bills. 2 to 3 times a week, they'll go to donate plasma as a second job. These are special education teachers, crane operators. These are jobs that used to pay enough so you could have a good life. That was the promise of Texas. That was the promise of the American dream. But so many working people do not believe in the American dream. And it is our job to make sure it is working here in Texas.
How do you also, in that vein, make sure that there's a feeling that you've seen, maybe not that Texas is New York or New York is Texas, and you just brought up New York, so it makes me think about it. But people see what Mayor Mamdani is doing and say, okay, well, government can work if the right people are focused on the right things. Is is part of the campaign that you are running, and of course, James Tallarico is running as well, talking about making sure that politics is no longer coin operated, also about proving to people that there is good government. I feel like there is always and still this residual fear that has been the Republican project to say that more government is always going to be bad. Regulation is going to be bad. And certainly there is red tape that you want to cut. And I'm sure there's red tape that you want to cut as governor. But how much of that is part of the conversation as well? Just kind of changing people's mind on the fundamental about what government can and should do.
It's everything. People don't trust government today. I don't trust government today. And so our first job is to restore that trust. And that's why I have put forward a policy position that is not normal, not orthodox, but these are not normal times. And it is to send to every Texas household a check for $1,500. $1,500 to every Texas household. It comes from what's known as our rainy day fund that is sitting at $27 billion. It used to be at $10 billion, but Greg Abbott's hoarding that money, won't spend it to help people, right? So just give it back to the people. People know how to spend that money better than government. And at a time when trust in government is at an all-time low, we need to show that we can do something to help working Texans. And so that is my proposal. It's gotten a lot of attention because it is different. And we have to be able to break through all the noise, all of the fighting, all of what is happening with these social issues, culture wars that they want us to be fighting about, and talk about how we will deliver for Texans.
Yeah, I saw that proposal and I really like the universality of it. I think that's important. And especially in a state like Texas where there is so much pride, I'd probably say maybe more than any other state in the country. How do you think about that universality of policymaking, of saying like, we are all in this, this is a thing for everyone. We can build things for everyone. We are one Texas. It's sometimes it's like a whole nother country. I was just there visiting a friend. I was in San Antonio and I was in Austin. I was like, okay, yeah, I like that. We had some stuff going on here. It was hot outside, but that Austin River is great. How do you think about that universality in politics, especially in your state?
Well, it's still hot outside.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But look, the $1,500, I call it the Greg Abbott corruption tax refund, because we all pay it. And really, to your point, we're all in the same boat at this point. It's like 99% of us against 15 billionaires who are calling the shots in this country and in Texas in a big way. We got Elon Musk here.
That sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So yes, we're all in the same boat. And I think that's why people who have traditionally voted Republican are saying, you know what, this is not about partisan politics anymore. We're beyond that. That is not relevant in 2026 when we are all struggling. It is harder to make it in Texas. It should not be. We are a world economic powerhouse. The people of Texas built that power. We have great pride in that, and I'm ready to take it back.
I saw a video of you. I think it was with two Republicans, and they were wearing, what were the shirts that they were wearing? But they were like, yeah, we're breaking off, we're breaking away. We're kind of tired of this. But when you're first speaking to a Republican voter, maybe they're at one of your events or you're out across the state, what's the first thing that you like to bring up? I think people are always interested in kind of like a Democrat running in Texas or running in a redder state. How are they making sure that, we're not compromising our values, but we're bringing people in? What's the first thing you like to talk about?
Well, I ask them, what's their experience? What do they care about? The way I see what happened with MAGA and the reason why people voted for Trump in Texas, and Latinos voted for Trump too in Texas, is because he said the system is rigged. Mm-hmm. And he's right. The system is rigged and people know it, right? We have to stop defending a system that is indefensible. Now, Trump's rigged it for himself, of course.
Yes.
Right? That's not right. Now that's what he's done.
He's done a really great job unrigging it and then rigging it for himself. He's rigging it to the him direction. Yes.
And people see that too. And people don't like the corruption. And so it creates an opportunity and it creates a space to have real conversations about what people care about. But I think I have tried my hardest not to be knee jerk about these positions that people, even who are MAGA, have, but to listen to about where it comes from, because it actually comes from a populist sentiment. And in Texas, this is the birthplace of populism. It was LBJ's grandfather with the Farmers Alliance that pushed back against the big railroads to have some power, to have some say in their communities. And so it's very much our roots, our political roots in Texas. And that's what I'm running on. People like to talk about, are you moderate? I don't think those labels apply anymore. I think it's about, are you going to deliver for people?
And that's the same kind of conversation that both you and James Tallarico are having. What's it been like out on the campaign trail with him as well?
Well, great. It's good when I see him. Texas is a big state, so I don't get to see him all that often, but we are in close connection. He and I both are in the Texas House together. We sit next to each other on the floor of the Texas House. Actually, we both serve on the Public Education Committee. And in 2023, we were the co-chairs of the effort to kill vouchers, and we were successful at that. So I have a good working relationship with him. I'm proud of him. He is a great boost for this ticket. We work well together. So the fact that we have such a strong top of a ticket, for the first time, we have Democrats running in every congressional seat, every state House seat, state Senate seat in 50 years. We haven't had this in 50 years.
Crazy.
Creates this opportunity. We saw it play out in the primary. I got twice as many votes in my primary as Beto got in 2018 when we came so close to flipping. And that's because Democrats are working it in every section of the state like we haven't before. And I want to make sure before I leave you that I express and explain what are the national stakes in this
Please
race.
do. Yeah.
Because we saw last year that Greg Abbott was so willing to do this power grab to take congressional seats. We know now, after the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, politicians have said they will come back next year and redraw maps again, because now there are no rules. When that happens, we will lose 5 Democrats in Congress. And then the Brennan Center predicts in another 2 years, the census will show Texas is entitled to another 4 to 5 congressional seats, because we're growing faster than a lot of the other states, right? If we don't flip before the end of the decade, and we're right there, there can be no Democratic control of Congress. That's 10 seats off the table. The math no longer works. Texas becomes too big. No Democratic control of Congress, not for this election, for all elections. And whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, when an election is decided before the first vote is cast, we all lose. We need a governor in Texas who will veto their rigged maps. I will be that governor.
Yeah, I think that the national implications are clear, and that is why, of course, there's so much energy for your campaign all across the country. If people watching right now want to support your campaign, how can they do so?
Yes. Well, I'm asking every American to be part of this fight and go to GinaForTexas.com and do what you can, but do all that you can, because this might be our last best chance.
Yeah, we got to give it our all. You were certainly doing so out on the trail. So I'll leave you to get back to it, but I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining me on Sunday.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So great chatting with Gina Hinojosa, whose campaign we absolutely need to be getting behind right now. Not only because it is time to flip Texas from red to blue, but also the corruption and incompetence coming out of Greg Abbott is just staggering, to say the least. And speaking of staggering incompetence, it is time for hopefully your favorite segment, although the interviews are great, but my favorite segment of the week, and that is the Idiot of the Week. And this week, in a certain way, every week, the idiot is Donald Trump, who managed to turn a failed $14 million paint job into a failed felony prosecution. Now, in case you need a refresher, back in May, Donald Trump ordered a rushed renovation of the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, repainting the bottom for literally no reason whatsoever, other than, of course, corruption, and as well as the fact that he wanted it ready and pretty for his big birthday bash and his big 4th of July celebrations. They both failed. No one's surprised. And no one was surprised that the reflecting pool failed. It was an immediate disaster. The paint job was terribly done. It looked horrible. It looked like shit. It started falling apart right away. The lining, it peeled. The algae, it bloomed. And we salute you, algae, in your fight against this administration. The water obviously turned green, as we remember. And of course, rather than admit that a rushed government contract that was botched by a contractor named Atlantic Industrial Coatings might have had, gone badly, the administration, they decided, instead of just taking accountability, something Donald Trump will never do, that the real culprit, well, it had to be Antifa. The leftist Democrat vandals, they were the ones responsible. And in classic fashion, they chose literally the worst person possible to single out. Do you remember this? David Hearn, a 3-time Olympic canoeist, represented the country on the world stage. Yeah, he stopped during a bike ride to just touch a piece of the pool liner that had already come off, and they charged him with a felony. And again, in classic Trump fashion, had to quietly back off after screaming about it for weeks. Now, on Friday, you might have saw this, Trump's own Justice Department quietly admitted that the whole thing was fake. Jeanine Pirro's office filed to drop the case, writing that the damage was not the result of a vandal. No. It was the botched installation. They also said that the Interior Department and Dougie Eyebrows had actually been sitting on documents proving that the whole time. So obviously, Donald Trump, the very mature individual that he is, he took the news well. He moved on with his day. No, I'm joking. Of course he didn't. He lost his mind. He got on Truth Social and said, well, quite frankly, I disagree 100% with Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, on the reflecting poll. I don't know what she was thinking. To me, it was a pure case of vandalism that included the grass, which had been, it's got a big 8647 on it with giant letters. It's so terrible. And other elements of the surrounding area, they were also damaged. Oh, so sad. There have been some contractor difficulties, sure. Oh, just some? But the major damage was caused by the vandals. Like I said earlier, it just shows that Donald Trump cannot let anything just be an accident. Because an accident means something happened on his watch that wasn't somebody else's fault. And admitting that he's not infallible, it is just out of the question. It's classic cult behavior. Instead, we get a felony indictment over pool paint, an innocent athlete dragged through a criminal case for weeks, and Trump overruling his own Justice Department in public because his ego cannot survive one single mistake. Donald Trump, as always, you are the idiot of the week. Go cry into your busted little pool, big guy. We're going to keep calling you out every single week. Even when you're not the number one idiot, you always are in our hearts and our minds and our souls. And we are just tired of it. But that is why we do this show. And that is why I want to thank not only my 3 guests, Bernie Sanders, Jon Favreau, and Gina Hinojosa, but also my friends who helped put this show together. I want to give a special shout out to my buddy Jules, who helps me produce this show, of course, along with the Mycelis brothers, Brett, Ben, and Jordy, who've got a new book coming out soon. Make sure you grab a copy. But I also want to say thank you to y'all, the audience, tuning in every week, being so supportive, dropping blue hearts in the live chat, leaving a like, sharing the show. I've seen y'all talking about it on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Facebook, on Instagram, in the comments of my YouTube videos, of Meidas YouTube videos. The support has been incredible, and I so greatly appreciate it. It is why we are continuing to grow this show. It is why we're taking over mainstream media. They're a little scared of us considering the viewership that we get, and we are going to continue to do so because of y'all. So thank you so much. And if you want to support the show, don't just watch this weekend, watch every weekend, because we are going to continue to bring it every single weekend. It's going to be you. It's going to be me. It's going to be a couple of great guests. And as always, it's going to be happening on Sunday.